Hello everyone, hello and welcome to tonight's new moon in Cancer intention setting practice in time for the solar eclipse in Cancer, which is happening tomorrow. I'm Phaedra, for those of you who don't know me. Just refresh my browser really quickly so I can put a live video and your comments up on my laptop, and that way in case anything happens, the comments on my phone where I'm broadcasting from, I'll be able to see what questions you have. So hold on, if you will, just one moment. I was all prepared in the group and then I navigated away to answer a question for someone. Oops. So here we go. All right, there's our broadcast. And here are my notes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we have a new moon solar eclipse tonight, or well, tomorrow. Tonight we're doing our intention setting though. Bear with me, it's really hot here. I'm gonna check and make sure. Nope, I have the light settings right. It's really hot here. I just walked to the store a little bit ago. It's 111 degrees outside when I walked to the store, folks. It's hot, too hot for long hair. So I have my hair up tonight, so I hope that doesn't get in the way. We'll see if my pen holds. Who knows, maybe. Anyway, so I'm Phaedra. I'm the astrologer and artist of Mystick, Physick, Astrology, and I use Western Sidereal Astrology in my practice to help you reconnect with your soul purpose and to remember why you came into the world to begin with, because we all came in with a purpose. And sometimes by the time we reach, a ripe old age of adulthood, we've lost track of what that purpose is. Welcome, I'm glad to have you with me. My aim on the broadcasts is always to provide guidance on how we can consciously use the energy of the transiting planets to affect our lives in a positive way. So it's about working with astrological cycles with intention, rather than just reacting to our transits and reacting to other astrological cycles we're experiencing. In this group, the idea is we practice working with those cycles with intention. You'll want to be using your Fagan-Bradley sidereal natal chart. So if you don't have that, you can get it for free. Just plug in your birth data at the website. I'm going to give you guys a link real quick in case anyone needs it. Plug in your birth data in a calculator, and then you can just grab a screenshot to bring to the live stream. You'll want to know where your sidereal sun sign is. You'll want to know where your sidereal ascendant is. And today we're going to be looking at whether you have any planets or points at certain specific degrees, because this does fall in line with our eclipse. So there's the calculator if you need it. Thanks for joining me, Pamela. It's good to see you with us. What's next? So in tonight's intention setting, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be kind of guiding you through how you can open yourself up to new and different possibilities and opportunities. I'm going to walk you through the process of discovering for you what is the best way to personally use this particular new moon. And tonight I really strongly encourage you to work with your own inner guidance as we go through the practice. Because we're working with eclipse energy, it's really powerful. And I really feel strongly that when it's eclipse time and we have this powerful opportunity, just follow your inner instinct, follow where you feel most led. So while I will take time early in the broadcast to go over what house this is falling in for each of us by our sidereal rising sign, if you feel called to use this eclipse energy intention in a particular way, do it. Don't worry about what house it's falling in, okay? And then we're going to set our intentions tonight and think big with this one. I strongly encourage you to do that, because this is the start of a longer cycle, right? It's a 6-month cycle until we have our next Cancer full moon. But because we're working with eclipse energies, the eclipses can be active in our lives for up to a year after the eclipse event. Especially if we have personal chart contact with them. So think big with this one, because it's a heck of an opportunity, because it's a new moon. It's about starting a new cycle. Okay. Hi, Danielle. I see that you're with us. It's good to have you on. Okay, I posted the link. So yeah, grab your sidereal natal chart. You might want to grab a paper copy and a pen or pencil so you can mark the degrees that we're going to be talking about. And then specifically, we're looking for planet points. You're not that late. We only just started a few minutes ago, Danielle. That's okay. But specifically, we're going to be looking at planets or points within, I would say, plus or minus 3 to 5 degrees of 23 degrees Cancer. And it's actually almost 24 degrees Cancer. I don't know if I wrote down the actual degrees and minutes in these notes. I have them, actually, I have them in some other notes. So tomorrow's eclipse is exact at 23 degrees 41 minutes. So 23 or 24 degrees. Oh, there we go. Let me plug the mic back in. I thought I was going to have to fish for signal. My husband is also broadcasting at the same time. So if you will be patient with me, he also, so I guess you could call it live streaming. He does Hangouts, Google Hangouts on Friday nights with his fans. They get to watch him draw and ink and color his comic book and chat with him while he does it. So they kind of get to peek ahead in the storyline while he's working. And so that's what he's doing right now. And it just so happens it falls on the same night as our intention setting practice. So hopefully I won't get kicked off because he's jacked straight into the router and I'm on the wireless stairs. Danielle says 24 degrees Scorpio Sun to Sag MC. So let's have a look at that. Actually, I want to get back to my notes real quick. Hold those thoughts, Danielle. And actually hold them for a little bit longer because I want to talk a little bit about a blog post that I haven't put up on the website yet that I wanted to have up before we went live. Didn't have enough hours in the day to make that happen. I do want to get it up hopefully before I go to bed tonight, but I have a video to edit and upload to YouTube, so we'll see. I might be able to juggle both. We'll try. Rosalind says this eclipse will be opposite my 21 degree Capricorn Jupiter. You will feel that. You will feel that. And trine Pisces Sun and Venus, you'll feel that too. You might feel those two experiences in slightly different ways, Rosalind. And that's part of what the blog post is supposed to be about. So some of you were on my broadcast a couple weeks back about 3 eclipses you need to know. And what we did was we talked about navigating eclipses in general, and then in the second half of the broadcast we talked specifically about this eclipse season, this July and August eclipse season. And so I spent the afternoon writing up some notes. So the second half of that video where we got specifically into degrees and dates, I wanted to post as a separate post on the website. So I haven't uploaded the video yet, and I don't have that post quite ready, but today I was working on my notes. Hi, Jennifer. It's good to see you. I was working on my notes more specifically because I had a chat with a client after that broadcast. She was kind of confused in the sense that she wasn't quite sure how to put what we were talking about to use practically in terms of looking at her own natal chart. And so what I did was I wrote up a little more detail so that if you were sitting down with your chart in front of you, you could read through those notes and pick out the points exactly and plot out, like in your day planner or your calendar, what dates are going to be significant for you in the coming 12 months after each eclipse if you happen to be personally affected. So that's part of why I'm saying hold that thought, Danielle, and yes, we'll come back to your points as well, Rosalind, because the different ways that you can be affected depending on the aspect you have with the eclipse point that will be re-triggered at different points in time in the year following the eclipse. And that particular post, which I'm still working on getting up, is going to help you know specifically where and how. So don't lose those notes that you have of your own degrees and planets, because as soon as I post that to the website, I'll let y'all know here in the group, and then you'll be able to sit down and kind of look at your chart more specifically as it relates to the July 12th eclipse we just had, the July 27th eclipse we just had, and the one coming up tomorrow. I know, Jennifer, shoo! And you especially, my heart goes out to you, woman. You have had a time of it, that is for sure. Let me scroll back up my notes. So I want to touch on, before we get into what house this is falling in by rising sign, I want to touch on a little bit this particular eclipse specifically. So in terms of planets or personal points, where to look in your chart, you want to look near 23 or 24 degrees of Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, which are the water signs, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Okay, and I would say if you have a planet or point within 3 to 5 degrees either side of 20 or 24 degrees of a water sign or an earth sign, yes, you're going to feel it. Okay. The closer you are, the more intensely you'll feel it. Okay. But we're going to feel this eclipse in terms of its strongest effect in the week that we just had, which you can attest to, Jennifer, and in the coming week. So between now and say like the 17th or 18th. Okay. And this is a really emotionally charged eclipse. Okay. It's going to bring a period of growth and activity centered around themes that have to do with home and family, especially mother, but also father, your parents, okay? Within the family, within the household, and that's going to be a period of growth and activity that you'll likely feel for 6 to 12 months, okay? Feelings are likely flowing really near the surface right now, okay? It's not uncommon during an eclipse like this, I hear you, Jennifer, to want to take comfort in familiar things, to want to retreat into the sanctuary of our own home, to surround ourselves with the familiar, with close family connections or friends that are so close that they feel like family. This can also affect home businesses. So if you have a home business, it may benefit from the rush of energy coming into your life around this particular solar eclipse. It's a partial solar eclipse. Danielle says this week was wow in strange ways. You know, it really has been, and probably everybody has a slightly different story to tell. Everyone who's affected, it's probably affected them in just like a range of different ways, but it's all going to be centered around themes of home and family, especially, but also emotional themes, really emotional themes, and emotional themes that may make us want to withdraw into our own protective shell, the way that Cancer kind of is in his own protective shell, right? So watch for opportunities that could arise with this particular new moon, especially around home or home-based business if you have one. In the week before and after August 11th, those particular opportunities that come up could be really significant, especially over the coming 6 to 12 months. So pay attention to what comes up in your life. And depending on how you're affected, you may find that you actually have to be more intentional about taking action to capitalize on the eclipse energy itself. Because for some of us, it might not be a super challenging eclipse, in which case it's easy to just kind of let the opportunities slip by without acting, and I would hate to see you do that if you encounter a really amazing opportunity. For folks who it might be a more challenging eclipse, you'll probably have to just face whatever comes up. You probably won't really have a choice about taking action. Okay, and it might be difficult, uncomfortable, painful, but when you come out the other side, you'll be in a better place. Okay, so just know that what eclipses bring up for you is forcing you to deal with things that you've been avoiding dealing with directly. Okay? And even though it might be uncomfortable or unexpected, it really ultimately is for your best good in the long run, because whatever it is that comes up for you is probably something that's holding you back in some way, holding you back from moving forward, holding you back from growth, holding you back from reaching your highest potential. And that's what we're all here for, is to see how close to that highest potential we can get before we croak, right? So whatever happens, be patient, be compassionate with yourself. Try to find forgiveness in your heart. One practice that may help with that, especially if it has to do with issues around forgiveness within the home and family, which now that I think about it, that kind of just came up for me recently too. You could call it a spiritual practice. I don't know that it comes from any one spiritual practice. I know that I encountered it on my journey. I don't know the source of it, but it's about, ooh, Danielle, that's tough. That's really tough. But it's about learning to see God, or learning to see the face of the divine in everyone you encounter as you go about your life. Even the most, what you might judge off the cuff to be the most horrible, atrocious people, right? Who do the most horrible, atrocious things. And this is a practice that, like, it intrigued me when I heard about it, and I thought I was really good at it until I met a person that I was like, I don't see that. How can I see God in this person? They're so awful, right? So I sat with it, I spent time with it. I actually went to a mentor of mine whose opinion and guidance I held in really high esteem at that time. And just kind of like opened myself up to the possibility of maybe seeing God in this person's face. And I eventually came to a point where I realized that even the most horrible people on the planet who do the most atrocious things to other humans that you can't even like reconcile why, they serve a purpose in the life of the people they touch. And the purpose that they serve is always around growth. It's always around spiritual evolution and personal evolution. And quite often it's around karmic lessons that you have to work through one way or another. And the thing about karmic lessons is that you either deal with it in the physical world, in reality, by going through an uncomfortable or difficult situation or experience, right? Or you forgive. Those are the only two paths through karma. Okay? A lot of us really, really struggle with forgiveness. And so often we take the hard road, which is very messy and uncomfortable and painful usually. But know that there's another path. And know that regardless of whatever it is you're wrangling with right now or ever, your choices are learn forgiveness, find a way to that point, or you'll come back and do this over and over and over again. And I know that there are many of you who watch these broadcasts that really do not want to come back and do this over again. You've had enough. You're ready to be moving past it, and you don't want to go through it again. So I strongly encourage you, open your heart to the possibility that forgiveness can be achieved, even if you can't find it right in this moment. And instead, after you've chosen to open your heart to that, practice trying to see the face of God in whoever it is you're involved with in whatever dynamic is going on in your life, especially the painful and uncomfortable experiences. Okay, this isn't really so difficult when it's a pleasant experience. When it's a pleasant experience, you don't necessarily have negative karma to work through, right? So just some things to chew on mentally and to sit with mentally, but know that it's not necessarily going to be a fast process. You're not going to necessarily wake up tomorrow and find that things are amazing and butterflies and rainbows and unicorns, right? Especially because this is an eclipse cycle. They tend to last longer than a regular lunation cycle. And you'll probably find that through the coming year, if you're personally affected by this eclipse, you reach different stages at different times as you work your way through whatever it is you're working your way through. And it'll almost be like an evolution of your experience. And that's okay. That's how it's supposed to work. Just know that it won't be one and done. This is probably going to come up a couple of times if you have personal contact with the eclipse, whatever it is you're experiencing, good or bad. Okay? Now, parents and heredity can take on added importance at new and full moons in Cancer. Especially right now with this being a new moon and an eclipse. It can also involve long-standing family traditions or family behavior patterns. Okay? Because if you think about it, even negative family behavior patterns like addiction or abuse cycles or anything like that, those are family traditions, right? They're just not happy ones. Nostalgia can be a big feeling around a new moon solar eclipse in Cancer. We might long for the way things used to be. And that may be that we're remembering them more pleasantly than they actually were at the time. Okay. Danielle says, I needed the oxygen mask before the children. Yes, exactly, Danielle, exactly. And we're going to talk about that as we get into the releasing practice, about self-care and self-nurturing. Okay, because sometimes that's important to fill your own cup first, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. And that's the same thing, putting on your oxygen mask before helping your neighbor or your child or whatever. Okay? So, like I was saying, planet or point at 23 or 24 degrees of a water or earth sign, so Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo, you're going to feel this the most. Cancer and Capricorn, Aries and Libra, if you have planets or points near the eclipse degree in those signs, or if you have Cancer Sun or Cancer Rising, you're going to feel it in a much more challenging way than the other signs will. Okay? Virgo and Taurus, Scorpio and Pisces, you may be affected if you have a planet near the eclipse degree, but in a less challenging way. And so you're the folks who are going to need to be intentional and proactive about taking action, especially if an opportunity comes up, to not let it slip by. Danielle says, does the eclipse activate when the progressed moon comes in aspect? Yes, it can. Yes, Jennifer, if you're Cancer, it's the Cancer folks who feel this most strongly. And especially if you're Cancer folk with a planet or point near the eclipse degree. You guys are getting whammied, basically, which I know you know that's because you're feeling it. I kind of know a little bit about what you're going through, and it's a prime example of what this particular eclipse is about. The good news is there's a way through. And the good news is that as you work your way through, something better is waiting for you on the other side of that journey, at the end of that journey. Okay? But like I was saying, if you have a planet or point at 23 or 24 degrees of Virgo, Taurus, Scorpio, or Pisces, it's more of a friendly eclipse for you. But it's easy. If there's an opportunity that comes up, it's easy to let the opportunity slip by unused, right? So don't let that happen. Okay? So if you have Aries, let's jump into to where this is falling by rising sign, and that way if you want to work with this energy you can. If you have Aries rising, it's a 4th house new moon for you, so home or property, family, parents especially, real estate, later life, those are the areas that may be coming up for you right now. If you have Taurus rising, it's a 3rd house new moon, so local travel, near local communication within a short distance around you. Also childhood education. So it may bring up childhood things for you. So not just education, but childhood experiences may come back to you, especially if you're over the age of 19. Okay. Siblings and neighbors. Also your immediate environment may be undergoing some kind of change. Okay. If you have Gemini rising, this is 2nd house, so this is an opportunity around earned income and expenses, wealth and possessions, movable assets, money you earn by the work that you do, money you earn by your own 2 hands, okay? If you have Cancer, 1st house, so this has to do with your identity, self-expression, your role in the world potentially. Can also have to do with your appearance and your body. Okay. If you have Leo rising, 12th house, so maybe a little more subtle, privacy and seclusion, the unconscious mind, what happens outside of your awareness, in the periphery of your experience, right? So this could be unconscious beliefs, unconscious thought patterns, behaviors, that sort of thing. But it can also have to do with escapist tendencies and addictions when it's a 12th house lunation. Okay. Spirituality may come up, your spiritual path or your spiritual journey. Okay. If you have Virgo rising, this is 11th house, so friends, organizations, hopes and dreams, those are all 11th house issues. Your social life, right? Social connections. So especially at an eclipse, with when it's on the moon's north node and energy is moving in, it could very well be a new social connection that comes up in your life. Okay. If you have Libra, this is 10th house, which is career and achievement. It's fame, recognition, your reputation, your status in the world, your awards, but also career and professional life. Okay. If you have Scorpio rising, it's 9th house, which is international affairs, so things like long distance or international travel. Immigration can be an issue. Publishing and broadcasting, so forms of long distance communication. Also legal or higher education matters, or religious, your religious life, your religious practices even could come up. Now notice that in astrology, religion and spirituality are governed by 2 different areas of the chart, okay? Just like love and marriage are. There's a lot of interesting things about astrology where once you start to study, you recognize, wow, these things they seem related, they seem like they would be the same thing, but they're not really, because you can have one without the other in every one of those cases, and that's why they fall into different areas of the chart. Okay. Sagittarius, 8th house, so other people's money. This would have to do more with resources that are at your disposal that come to you through other people. So potentially things like investment earnings or insurance, inheritances, those things can be 8th house matters. Taxes, whether that's tax refunds or taxes that you owe, those are 8th house. Windfall monies, so bonus or commission income or like winnings even, fall under the 8th house. But the 8th house also has to do with some more esoteric themes like the occult, death and rebirth cycles, transformation. Oftentimes with the 8th house, talking about transformation through destruction. Okay. Hi, Allison. I'm so glad you're with us. If you have Capricorn rising, is a 7th house new moon. So partnership and marriage, business partnerships, relationships with other people in general, what we reject about ourselves or refuse to acknowledge about ourselves. And one thing that we don't talk about often on the broadcast, and maybe we should, 7th house is also the house of open enemies. And so sometimes what comes up when it's a 7th house lunation doesn't really have to do with marriage or partners or business. It has to do with people that we don't get along with, okay? So keep that in mind. If you have Aquarius rising, it's a 6th house new moon for you. So work, health, pets, daily routines, your habits. So it's an opportunity maybe to start a new habit, one that's good for you, especially one that's good for your health, okay? Pisces, 5th house. So creativity, children, true love, romance. What else? So pleasurable activities, sports, gambling, and risk-taking. Those are all 5th house things. So are we at the end? That was Pisces, right? So if you joined late and you didn't catch the themes and house of this particular new moon based on your rising, so we're working with the Fagan-Bradley Sidereal Zodiac. If you know your Fagan-Bradley Sidereal rising sign, let me know in the comments and I'll recap for you what house this is falling in and the themes of that house. However, if you don't know and you just want to do the practice with us, because it's an eclipse lunation, what I was saying at the beginning of the broadcast is I strongly encourage you to just use it how you feel led. Okay, so you could still participate and you could still get an immense amount of benefit by doing this practice during an eclipse. Okay, but let's talk a little bit about Cancer and the Cancer archetype. Cancer is cardinal water, so this is active principle, active water, and water tends to be the emotional side of us in the natal chart, right? So this is turbulent emotion. Okay, potentially. Not like Scorpio, which is fixed water, which is more like this still deep pool. And with Cancer, we're looking at like the waterfall or the rapids, right? So if you can kind of conceptualize it this way. So Cancer is symbolized by the crab in modern astrology. However, you will often see Cancer symbolized, especially going back to medieval sources. You'll see it as a lobster sometimes, or some other kind of crustacean, and it really doesn't matter what crustacean, it's the concept. Soft on the inside, vulnerable on the inside, hard shell on the outside. Okay, and if you think about it, Scorpio is the same way, right? Only Scorpio gets the stinger, whereas Cancer has the pincers, right? Right? So the archetype of Cancer is that of the mother. It's ruled by the moon, right? So it has that feminine, receptive, nurturing type of energy. So it's also a type of the invisible man. And you might ask why that is. We'll get to it. Cancer is the caregiver, sometimes associated with being a healer, but a healer in the sense maybe of the wise woman rather than the physician. Okay? The invisible man, let's touch on that a little bit. How can a man be invisible in society? Well, a man who displays or has feminine characteristics or qualities is quite invisible as a man, right? So we're talking about maybe the stay-at-home dad. That's one way of conceptualizing the invisible man, right? Or the emotional man, the man who is not afraid to feel his own emotions and to react and to respond to them, right? The vagabond, that's another type of an invisible man, a man who's not integrated into society in the same way most folks are, okay? I bring that up mostly because sometimes when you're exploring Cancer and the Cancer archetype, you'll run into this idea of the invisible man. And a lot of times folks, especially if they're new to astrology or just haven't spent a lot of time studying it deeply, have a hard time conceptualizing, well, what is that? What is the invisible man? Well, the invisible man is invisible because we don't see him as masculine, okay? It's not to say he's not a man, it's not to say he doesn't exist. So Cancer, what is the crab? The crab is a creature that carries its home with it, right? This is why we give the Cancer the symbolism of the 4th house, home and family. So this is very much the nature of a person who can make themselves at home anywhere they are. It's just a knack that they have, right? This is a soft-hearted nature, a tender, vulnerable nature, an emotional nature, but that has a tough exterior, okay, with pincers. We talk pincers. So this is a defensive energy, a defensive position in the chart, okay? So what I want you to explore tonight in terms of our intention setting practice, we're going to explore some of these deeper aspects of Cancer, and in some ways that we haven't before. I'm going to bring up some ways that we have explored Cancer before, but we're going to take it a step further this time because I want to really use this eclipse energy. So grab your pen and paper and take a moment to think about what or who are you overprotective of and why? Is it something about yourself that you're overprotective of? Where you feel most vulnerable? How can you develop the confidence to step out of your shell? To allow yourself to be vulnerable, to take off your mask? What is it that you need, and how can you actively take steps to meet that need? What will allow you to develop that confidence? Okay. Alternatively, okay, where are you not establishing healthy boundaries? In what ways do you continually allow yourself to be hurt? In what ways do you let other people take advantage, of your caring? And what can you do to begin establishing healthy boundaries? What do you need to do for your own self-care, rather than giving in to always putting other people's needs first? What makes you feel nurtured and cared for? And are you doing enough of that? How can you do more? Where are you hiding? What are you retreating from? Where are you afraid of being seen, and why? Allison says, I need to start expressing myself honestly. Yes, yes. That can be a big one. That can be a really big one. Where are you avoiding opening up and venturing out into the world? What will it take for you to feel safe to overcome that urge to withdraw? And what first step can you take towards overcoming that urge? Instead of always taking everything on. Yes, that's caring for other people and putting their needs ahead of your own. Like we were talking about earlier, I think it was before you jumped on, Allison, we were talking about not being able to pour from an empty cup. You got to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help others with theirs. And that is very, very true when we're talking about water creatures, right? You better have a way to get that oxygen. I harbor resentments and I don't ask for what I need. Yes, yes, it's an easy thing to do. It's an easy trap to fall into. The problem is, and you know this because this is an area that you work in, the longer you harbor those resentments, those negative feelings, the unforgivingness, the longer you harbor that over time, it will, and I guarantee you, it will have a negative impact on your health, your physical body health over time. So, in your own best interest, find a way to let go of that, to move past it, because you deserve better. You deserve more. Okay? What are you approaching sideways and refusing to face head on? How can you begin dealing with it directly, and what is the first step in doing that? What is it you're afraid of allowing into your experience, and how can you open yourself up to the new, the different, the strange, or the unfamiliar? Let me take a moment through some of these comments here. Danielle says, funny, I'm going with my ego and stop suppressing it. You know, it's funny because in the spiritual world, right, in the spiritual culture, ego is often talked about and treated as a bad thing, a negative thing, a thing that you need to kill, right? There is a healthy expression of ego. And oftentimes that healthy expression of ego has to do with how we employ it in our interpersonal relationships. And I'll give you an example. So ego is when we are concerned with what others think of us and how others see us. When we're concerned with the image that we're projecting, right? And so when we think of egotistical people, they're people who are really concerned about their own self-image and how they come across. And that can be taken to a negative extreme. However, you can take it to the opposite end, the opposite extreme, where you don't care what other people think of you. So much so that you are off-putting. You don't care what people think about you, so much so that other people are uncomfortable in your presence. Okay? And healthy ego recognizes, healthy ego pays enough attention to how other people receive you with the aim of making them comfortable in a healthy and appropriate situation. I'm not talking about making people comfortable in an unhealthy situation or an inappropriate situation, but I'm talking about healthy interpersonal dealings, right? So, like whether you laugh at a funeral, right? Like that would be really inappropriate. And you could not care what other people think of you enough to not give a crap and laugh at someone's funeral, someone where that's really not appropriate. My husband and I have had this conversation. He wants people to laugh at his funeral, and if it was appropriate for the person whose funeral you're at, okay. But if not, right? Like, you get my gist. That's a really extreme example, but you get my gist. Rosalind says, I recently stopped volunteering at a senior center due merely to the fear of vulnerability. I've been feeling bad about it. I've always been too private and closed off. That can be a difficult thing, and vulnerability is a real tough one. If you're feeling bad about it, Rosalind, maybe explore why. It's okay to be private. It's okay to be closed off. It's not necessarily okay to take it to an unhealthy extreme. Okay? But if it's not an unhealthy extreme, however, if there's benefit to both you and to the folks at the senior center that comes through your volunteering, maybe it's worth facing that vulnerability and that fear of vulnerability, and just stepping into kind of, as much bravery as you can muster. That's a personal thing, right? So that's really up to you, and I'm sure you know your situation and yourself best, right? Allison says, it festers. I know it's related to my ankle issues. Yes. And especially if you have health issues that are chronic or injuries that do not heal, look for the underlying emotional cause. There almost always is one. Okay? Yes. Danielle is 24 Scorpio, Sun in the 8th. A water house too. So water houses are being activated. Makes sense. Thank you. Good. I'm glad that makes sense, Rosalind. Sometimes I don't know if I'm making sense until you folks tell me I'm making sense, but it's because you know your experience better than I do. All I can do is talk about it from the astrological perspective, which, may or may not be speaking to you, and hopefully it is if I'm doing it right. That's the idea. So let me get back to the last two prompts, and if you need, I'll recap them. Okay. So with your intention setting, and I'll recap them before I go quiet and do my intention setting. But here's what I want you to consider. I want you to consider setting an intention around beginning to establish healthy boundaries, and plan what it is you need to do that. Set a firm intention to stick to guns instead of being a softie, right? Like Cancer is on the inside, a softie, right? It's going to take practice to do that consistently, which is why you need to have the plan, which is why you need to know exactly how you will go about establishing those boundaries, especially if you know you have a recurring issue with a particular boundary that you're having a hard time setting. Make a plan for a healthy way of establishing that boundary. Practice your response in your head as much as you can, so that you're mentally prepared when it comes time to actually set that boundary in real life. Okay? But because it's going to take practice to do it consistently, there may be times where you fail at that. That's okay. Be willing to forgive yourself and be willing to practice self-compassion as you get into the habit of establishing those boundaries. Okay? Set an intention to allow time for your own self-care, or to nurture yourself, to explore the emotions which come up for you, especially at this new moon solar eclipse. Get to the root of those emotions, get to the heart of those emotions. Okay? Set an intention to be okay with the unfamiliar, with the unknown. Open yourself up to change, to new and different experiences, no matter how strange they might be. Embrace possibility. Okay? One thing that Cancer has a tendency towards, in terms of his energetic expression, is clannishness, right? Us or them, right? And so if it's not familiar, if it's not family, if it's not clan, it's other, to be not trusted and rejected. So you find that that's a pattern with you. See if you can't open yourself up to being willing to explore new and different and strange and unknown. Okay? Because when you cut yourself off from what's different, you limit your experience, right? And the universe doesn't work best that way. The universe works best when you stay open to possibilities. Okay? And that's because it's the part of you that's not here in the body that knows what your highest and best good is. Okay? It's that inner being, that higher self that knows. And so learn to trust it, and it will guide you. It will not lead you astray. So I'm going to recap these real quick, and then I'm going to go radio silent and do my own. So, what or who are you overprotective of, and why? How can you develop the confidence to step out of your shell or to take off your mask? What do you need, and how can you actively take steps to meet that need? As an alternative, where are you not establishing healthy boundaries? In what ways do you continually allow yourself to be hurt or re-victimized? In what ways do you let other people take advantage of your caring? And what can you do to begin establishing boundaries and practice that? What do you need for your own self, rather than giving in to always putting other people's needs first? What makes you feel nurtured and cared for, and are you doing enough of that? How can you do more? Okay? Where are you hiding? What are you retreating from? Or what are you afraid of? Where are you afraid of being seen, and why? In life are you avoiding opening up and venturing out into the world? And what will it take for you to feel safe and to overcome that urge to withdraw? What first step can you take towards overcoming that urge? What is it you're approaching sideways and refusing to face head on? How can you begin dealing with it directly? And what is your first step in doing that? What is it you're afraid of allowing into your experience? And how can you open yourself up to the new or the different, the strange or unfamiliar? Okay. So those are our intention setting prompts to chew on. I'm going to get into mine, and as I do that, I'm going to read to you what it says in today's page of the Moon Gazing Journal. It says to enlarge your breasts. Maybe I should have scanned ahead and read this. To enlarge your breasts, stand naked out on a balcony or a hill during the moon and chant Santa Luna, Santa Stella, Fami, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Fami Crescer Custa Mamela or Mamea. Holy moon, holy star, make this breast grow for me. And that, oh, so it's Italian, and if I bombed it, I totally apologize if we have any Italian speaking viewers on. Holy moon, holy star, make this breast grow for me. That's basically what it is. That's from Italian moon lore. There you go. Danielle is laughing. It's appropriate that that's what we came to at the new moon in Cancer, right? Which rules the breast. So we're just writing out what our intention is, and then hopefully, if anyone's feeling brave, when we come back to it, we'll share in the comments. I'll share mine. I think it's kind of weird, kind of uncomfortable with it, but that's okay, because that's the whole idea behind these practices, is facing what's uncomfortable, right? Cannot face. So I'm going to get to writing mine, and we'll see where this goes. I'm really not sure. And remember, you can do this practice. If you're working with your rising sign right now, keep in mind you can do this practice with your sun sign as well. And definitely when it's eclipse energy, and because it's so much more powerful than a regular new or full moon, I really encourage you do both practices, because it's two opportunities to put the energy to work for your life in a very, very powerful way. Rosalind says, I need a little more time. That's fine, Rosalind. Take your time. Danielle says, my intention is to get a bigger shell and to put my heart out to show it as well. I'm not scared to be heartbroken anymore with family or relationships. I just need a bigger and stronger shell. Yes, you do. And what do shell-bearing creatures do? They molt, right? As they grow, they outgrow their shell. They have to grow a new one. And so that is absolutely a normal and healthy response, rather than trying to keep yourself squished into this tiny little shell that you've outgrown. And so I love that, Danielle. I really like it. A bigger shell. I like it a lot. That's to me, very optimistic and very hopeful. So I'll tell you mine, and it's kind of a little weird and a little uncomfortable, sort of, when I start thinking about it. So for me, I'm working with it with my rising sign. I have Gemini rising. I mean, this is second house, which is earned income, possessions, expenses, but especially earned income is kind of where I want to focus. And what really caught me and just made me go, ooh, that's uncomfortable, is the prompt, what are you approaching sideways and refusing to face head on? I can tell you what I've been approaching sideways and refusing to face head on in my business is charging for horoscope subscriptions. Which isn't that hard to figure out, since I don't really charge for them, right? At the beginning of the month, they're available to the public for free. I initially wanted to charge for them when I first started writing horoscopes. I wanted to do, for the first couple of months, make it free to the public, and then I wanted to make it by subscription only. I wanted to make it free to the public for the first couple of months because I had this idea around doing a Sidereal Astrology challenge, like for people who were new to Sidereal Astrology, where they could learn more about it, and they would have needed, they would have needed access to sidereal horoscopes And there's just not that many sidereal horoscope writers out there. And actually at the time when I started mine, there weren't any. I had found years ago, I found a lady that did yearly horoscopes using a sidereal zodiac, but I haven't been able to find her writing in several years, and I couldn't, which is part of the reason why I started writing them to begin with. There was a big old hole in the market where obviously there was a need for it and no one was doing it, right? But charging for them makes me feel really uncomfortable. And I can tell you why. It's probably because I'm afraid that if I start charging for them, no one will come and pay me for them, right? You guys will just quit reading rather than actually pay, right? And so I started writing ahead and charging for that, so that if you wanted early access, you could pay me for that. And so that was kind of a sideways approach, right, to charging for horoscopes. And I bring it up because they take a lot of my time to write. They take a week or more to write and post. And I'm talking a week or more of like 10 and 12-hour days, if we're honest about it. And that's a lot of time to commit to something that you don't actually get paid for when you're talking about your work life, right? Am I going to start charging for them? I don't know. Am I doing what you were going to do? That's pretty funny, Danielle. I didn't realize you were going to do that. But I can tell you why. It's that fear of rejection, right? But what's funny is that because this is a second house new moon for me, and because it's happening at a retrograde, it just occurred to me the funniest thing happened this past week. So I know I've talked about on my live streams before, I've talked about this amazing book called Your Money or Your Life. I'm going to get it right now. Or not. I must have got it off of my bookshelf before and set it somewhere, because my husband and I were talking about getting back into the practice of what Joe Dominguez teaches in this book called Your Money or Your Life. And I used to use his practices religiously every month and even every week. And we've done enough sociological studies to know that people, I don't want to say wealthy people necessarily, but that's part of it. But people who are financially healthy spend 8 hours or more per month giving their finances attention, right? And we tend to think that that's what comes after, like the finances grow and then they need more attention, but it's not really that way. It's that they give them the attention first, and that's what makes them grow, right? And I have my own experiences around that. Now, I haven't used these practices that he teaches in Your Money or Your Life for a long, long time. Part of what tripped me up is, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Mint. It's amazing. Mint.com. I think it's intuit.mint.com now, because they were bought by Intuit. So I started with Mint, which is like a financial tracking platform, where you can kind of manage your finances all from one dashboard. It's really awesome. And I started using Mint when Mint was in beta. So this is going like way, way back to sometime in the 2000s. And after they got bought by Intuit, I started having trouble with them, and finally I just gave up. There were things that just quit working that had been working swimmingly before, and they just quit working. One of the things that was a huge issue was the fact that if you had it connected to your PayPal account, it would like duplicate your PayPal transactions. And I use PayPal for my husband uses PayPal for his business. It was unmanageable. Because he also does subscriptions. It was unmanageable to try to log in every month and get rid of hundreds, potentially, of duplicate transactions. And so I gave up. I got so frustrated and so angry with that, I just like quit using it. Problem was, my entire practice around Your Money or Your Life was centered on that dashboard. And I did explore other options at the time. Nothing that I found that worked for me. Certainly not the way Mint worked for me before Intuit bought it. Well, last week, I got this crazy wild inspiration to log back into my Mint account and see if it still did that. And it took me a while to get logged back in because I couldn't remember my login credentials. I actually had to get help from their chat people. But it was working. It was working the way that it always had. There was no more duplicate and triplicate PayPal transactions. And so I got everything like reconnected, all of our accounts, everything. And it didn't occur to me at the time that this was within the week before a solar eclipse in my earned income house, right? But it came to me while I was writing out my intentions. And so that's kind of what I want to ride with this particular, which is not maybe as scary as it might be for some people, because I know that some of you are dealing with some really serious, challenging stuff during this eclipse. This for me has been a challenge for the last several years, and it's especially if you have Cancer in your second house. That suggests that financial things are very much tied to your sense of emotional security, right? And so that's something that I wrangle with, and it's something that I'd like to kind of get back in order. My own financial health, my own financial self-care, nurturing my own finances and my earning ability, right? And so what I wrote, I did not write that I was charging for a subscription, so you're all safe for now. What I wrote is that I intend to begin consciously addressing ways to grow my income and to actively practice financial self-care. I intend to commit to spending time every week and every month. At the end of the month is when you would do this, to track my income and my spending, and to practice my monthly tabulations is what they're called if you're familiar with the book Your Money or Your Life. So the way that book works, they don't have you write up a budget. What they have you do is track every penny that you earned and every penny that you spend down to the pennies you pick up off the sidewalk, okay? And at the end of every month, you go through all of the money that you spent and you ask yourself, was it worth it? One simple question. Did it align with your values? Did it make you happy? Was it worth it? If you were financially independent, would you want to spend more, or would you rather spend less on that category, right? So very basic, and it really kind of reconnects you with the idea around money and spending, and it totally changes the way that you look at money and spending. One of the other practices that they have you do is calculate your true hourly wage, not the wage that it says on your paycheck, but the one that you actually earn once you factor out all of the money that you spend on having a job. So if you have to buy uniforms, or if you have to have your hair and your nails done, if you have to have dry cleaning, your commute, your car expenses, all this stuff, right? So you subtract all those expenses out of what you earn, and then you actually add in the time that it takes you to get ready for work, the time that it takes you to commute to and from work, and the time that it takes you to decompress once you get home, before you can be productive in your personal life. You add those to your hours, and then you calculate what your real hourly wage is, right? And so you're analyzing your spending according to whether it was worth it based on what your true hourly wage was. And it's really incredible. It's a really radically different way of looking at money and spending than ways that we're taught traditionally. And that's part of why I like it. It doesn't use budgets. Most people struggle with sticking to a budget, right? And it has you all of a sudden, like once you calculate your real hourly wage and you start thinking in this way, every time you're about to plunk down money for something, you start thinking about it in terms of how many hours of my life is this costing me? Because once you know your real hourly wage, you can recognize that however many hours that's costing you, that's hours of your life energy that you will never get back, right? Once you spend it, it's gone. That life energy is gone, right? So it's a very powerful way of looking at money. And so if money is an area where you want to make changes in your life, that's a book I would really strongly encourage you to get. Your Money or Your Life by Joe Dominguez and Vicki Robin. Get an early edition if you can. I'm not really sure that I'm fond of the later editions that have been rewritten. But it's an amazing book. And so I'm writing that I am committing to reigniting this practice, which is funny, right? Because this is retrograde period, right? And returning to it, and focusing on nurturing my own financial health and financial self-care. And then I commit to my crossover point. And a crossover point is a concept that he introduces in the book. And once you've begun living this way and practicing this method for a long enough period of time, after a while you get to a point where you can project the exact point in time where your passive income, so the money that your money is earning for you, crosses over what your monthly expenses would be. And once your passive income exceeds your monthly expenses, you've reached financial freedom. You could quit your job if you wanted to, right? You could do whatever you want with your life after that point. That doesn't have to be focused on earning money. And so I'm committing to my crossover point. That's what I commit to. I want to find that point, that date in time, and I'm going to get there. Okay? So one thing that we talk about on these broadcasts, especially when we're doing the intention setting, we talk about set your intention with the new moon. But don't take action just yet. Take your first action at the first light of the new moon, which usually happens about 2 or so days after the new moon. So for this particular eclipse, that would be the 13th. Right? Now, we always do kind of caution about beginning anything really important during retrograde season. And this is retrograde season, right? We've still got Mercury retrograde, we still have retrograde. Those are very, very powerful personal planets. Because for me, this is about going back to something that I had been doing for years, something that allowed me to buy a house with no mortgage. I'm not going to worry about that for myself. I am absolutely going to sit down on the 13th. I'm going to spend some time going through my spending for the last several months and categorizing it and tracking every last penny. And then I'm going to commit to, at the end of every month, spending time going over my monthly tabulations and analyzing my spending about whether it makes me happy, whether it's by my values, that sort of thing. And so this is what I'm going to do. I'm committing to this right now. If you're thinking about starting something new, where we might hesitate to make an initiation, especially during Mercury retrograde or Mars retrograde, know that you can still act on this Cancer eclipse energy if you make your initiation next month at the new moon or the month after at the new moon. Okay? Because this eclipse point will be being reactivated in the days around both of those new moons as well. Okay? So I want to give those to you as a couple of options. Okay? Danielle says we're looking at houses and money. That would be the good kind of practice where you might want to hold off making an offer until after we come out of Mercury retrograde. Or Mars retrograde even for you, Danielle, because Mars is a ruler for you, isn't it? Right? You have Aries, don't you, on the ascendant? I hope I'm not confusing you with somebody else's chart. I get so many charts in my brain sometimes I get them mixed up. Maybe I'm thinking of your Sagittarius. But look, don't be afraid to look. Go out and look and use what you see to help you get clear about what you want. Okay? And then you can also use that to set an intention about exactly what it is you want in a home, in a location, right? These are ways that you can use that, because you can still set your intention now, even if you wait to take action until later. That's fine. That's perfectly fine and perfectly appropriate. Okay? Now, if what you're experiencing is something like what I'm doing, where it would be about going back to something that you used to do, that you just kind of fell out of the habit of doing. Maybe that's about healthy boundaries. Maybe that's about, something else. You could go ahead and make your initiatory action on the 13th, and I would encourage you to do that. Okay? So just to consider. But yes, this is, you set your intention, you write it out. I started keeping mine in this book because I ended up with so many loose sheets of paper that I was finding them in random weird places. What I encourage you to do with this intention, whether you take action on the 13th or not, spend some time visualizing the outcome that you want. Okay, spend time with that. See it like it's real in your mind. See it like it's as real as watching a movie on a movie screen, right? You want to see it just exactly like that, and you want to see it in the present tense. You don't want to visualize it like it's some future point in time. You want to visualize it like it's you as you exist now, experiencing this ideal outcome that you want. And I want you to, as you're visualizing it, don't just limit yourself to what it looks like. Think about, like, if it's outside, what is the atmosphere like? Is there a breeze? Is the sun shining on you, making your skin feel warm? If you're in a house, like, what does it smell like where you are? What sounds can you hear? And spend time, find the emotional place of what it will feel like to have manifested that ideal outcome that you want, and spend as much time as you can in that emotional place of what it will feel like once you have achieved what you want to achieve. Remember that feeling, because then what I want you to do as we go through the coming weeks and months, I want you to come back to that feeling as often as you can. I want you to carry it with you like a touchstone, okay? Because that feeling is what's going to lead you to the manifestation of your ideal outcome. And you can take it a step further once you've spent some time visualizing and you've done this energetic practice. Draw it out. I really encourage you to draw it out, even if you don't feel like you really have drawing skills. I encourage you to draw it out in part because I did this as an exercise once a while ago, a couple years ago now, I think. And within about 6 months, everything that I had drawn out, except for one thing, I had manifested already. Okay, so these are some really powerful tools that you can use. Okay, and then I think that's it. I think that's all I have for you. Of course, this, and spend time with it, visualizing it, draw it out, all of that. Danielle says, I started a new surgeon next month. That's interesting because we're coming out of Mars retrograde at the end of this month. You're trying to get the husband to buy the house you're in. That way you wouldn't have to move. That's an interesting thing. And maybe that's something that becomes obvious as you look at other houses, that where you're at is really the ideal place to be. A few announcements. If you haven't read the August horoscopes at the website and the overview with the short reports, go and read them. They're there. They're free. Enjoy. Especially because this month we talk about this particular eclipse in Cancer, and that may give you more specific guidance by your sun and rising sign. So read for both your sun and rising sign when you read those forecasts. The planner, the Ultimate Astrological Planner, we've been talking about this for weeks. It's available for pre-order. Okay, I'm still finalizing some of the files. The earliest shipments will go out this month. If you're looking at ordering the comb bound, they may not ship until early September, and that's just due to the process of getting the wholesale supplies for the disc bound planners is a little slower than the other supplies that I use. But they're there on the website. If you go to mystickphysick.com/2019, you will see all of the planners that you can choose from. There's also good disc bound refills available. So if you already have a disc bound planner and you just want to buy the refills, you can do that. But go have a look. If you don't yet have an Ultimate Astrological Planner, this year I launched an academic version. So you could buy one now and it would start for the month of August rather than January. Or if you already have this year's planner, you can wait if you want to, or you can pre-order the 2019 planner, which would start in January. So all of those new options are available at the website. All the cool special new stuff that we did is rolled out this year. Thank you, Rosalind. I'm glad that you were able to join us on the broadcast, and thank you to Danielle. You're very, very welcome. But check out the planners. If you see one you like, order it. Like I said, most of them will ship before the end of August. The comb-bound versions probably won't ship until early September. And then join me also Monday. We're doing our next broadcast of the Sidereal Astro Update. That's at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time on the Mystick Physick Facebook page. So not here in the group, it's on the Facebook page. So 1:30 Mountain, 3:30 Eastern, 8:30 British Standard Time, or 5:30 in the morning, if you're joining us from from Melbourne, Australia, or thereabouts, okay? But that's on the Mystick Physick Facebook page. We'll recap where we're at currently with the month's transits and talk about what's coming up in the next couple of weeks and what you need to know to navigate that. And thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you got something out of this. I hope this was tremendously helpful for you and helps move you into a new space over the coming 6 to 12 months as the eclipse unfolds. And like I said, I will get the specifics on these particular dates and degrees up on the website with that post about this eclipse season, and I will let you know here in the group. I'll post a link as soon as that's done, and that way you can walk through your own chart more specifically, and if you keep a planner, you can note the dates that are going to be relevant to you over the coming year. You're welcome, Diane, or Jennifer, sorry. You're welcome, and I'm glad that you joined us, and we'll see you guys again next time, and we'll see you in the group, and thanks for joining me, and I hope you all have a wonderful, lovely evening. Bye.